Hello, this is Morgan Jacobs doing a quick Rhino tutorial. The next 15 minutes, I'll set a timer so that I don't go too much over, are going to be focused around getting you guys up to speed on some of the modeling techniques that you have available to you, and maybe some of the fastest ways to take a shot at modeling some of the things that you guys have in your hand drawings, as well as that you might have already tried to model, but run into some difficulties with. So I have the Moreau pulled open already, and I'm just going to take a look and start to piece out some of the parts. What you see in front of you is just my original model that was part of class today. But I'm gonna hop straight into it. So when you think about modeling these things, you're modeling from drawings, and unlike AutoCAD, Rhino is not necessarily a drafting software. So unlike AutoCAD, where what we might do is go to the front view and put our drawing of our project into the front view, and then go to the right view and put the drawing of our right view into the other side, and as if we were drafters, use these two projections. Project to C-plane will flatten a curve you've drawn in one view to that view. So if this was something, a slightly different program, this might be the most efficient way to build a shape that had these two elevations. You'd extrude them through each other, and then Boolean split both of them from each other, which would leave us only with, in this instance, our middle piece, that has the elevation we drew in one side and the elevation we drew in the other. But in Rhino, especially with some of the things you guys are working with, the easiest way to model is to model in a sculptor's method, a carving method, a stereotomic method, whatever you want to call it, a foam core method. Think about physical modeling. And so I'll start with something like this, or similar to this, but if my drawing was a negotiation of kind of these semicircular end forms, kind of stacked and addressed, and then maybe some vertical supports, maybe some horizontal supports and floor plates. What I might do is start by first using a box and giving myself something to carve with. My options, if I want to add a semicircle to this, are carving off these corners in an effort to, that's just using the circle, and then using the gumball, which is down here, to turn the circle one direction. And I could take the time to bring this down here, slice off these like corners, and that would give me my semicircular kind of top to this. But what I'll do instead is I'll extrude this curve all the way to here, and then I type MH. That's a shortcut for me. You guys can Google how to set shortcuts in Rhino, but all I'm doing is selecting my two objects that are separate and essentially typing Boolean union, and then typing merge all faces, which gets rid of that line that runs across there, and I just have a shortcut that does those two things in combination. Let's say I want another piece on the bottom. I can copy this to here, and actually, let's say in this instance I even have another one of these. So we'll extrude all three of these in order to make our shape, and we will Boolean union and merge all faces in effort to make this new shape. Then what I'll do is I'll type dupe face border. You see it at the top left right there, and I'll click on this face, which will give me the outline, and I'll pull this away so you have a better look at it, but it gives you the outline of whatever face you click on. If it's a flat face like this, that will allow us to type offset and pick the distance we want it to offset. Now, I've had this offset every time. Your offset may be different depending on your wall width, but this is an even offset all the way around this piece, And for the sake of this, I'll even say some of you might have some different kind of layouts. They might not have consistent wall widths all the way around. In which case, this is a great opportunity in this view, whatever view this curve is visible in. It's going to be this one, to start to draw those differences. So I might go here and say, okay, I want there to be a block that changes this wall width from here to here. And I'll trim this line away. Click on the cutting line I'm going to use, so this middle line. I'll type trim and then click on this offset. So now the joined extrusion I have here, or the joined curve I have here, is this new interior that I can extrude through my shapes. And then I can type Boolean difference, subtracting from the big shape. I'll subtract the interior one. And when I delete it, you'll see that I have that interior space that I was looking for. At this point, I'd get all my pieces to this level, and then start to assemble them like I might a physical model. So I'd bring something like this over to the model I've been working on, or however it works, and probably use my gumball to start to figure out what makes sense here. You know, I have this taller support already kind of up here. I have a variety of ways of starting to connect these pieces. Intersections like this are less than ideal if they're not thought out like mine, but assuming that you guys have been developing ways in which you might intersect up until this point, then that's an absolutely fine thing to do. And then what I'll also do is I'll say that this one should go further centered in here. I'm going to shrink it in scale a little bit so it's a little more reasonable, and that's just again using the gumball. That did change the width of my my walls, so they won't be identical to the rest of these, but if you can't visually tell the difference, then there is no difference. So at this point, I would start to consider, let me hide these lights. I'd start to consider what's cutting through where. So I would say this one rests on top of this. So I'm going to Boolean difference from the existing thing, this one, which will leave a little bit in here I'll just delete. That's going to give me a nice curved edge there. I also have this support coming up through everything. I'm going to say that cuts through my object. So I'm going to cut this through there. Once again, we get these nice supports. If we hadn't done that, if I make 2D this, it's going to create a very strange edge right here. And the line weights aren't going to come through correctly. So modeling cleanly like this will make your drawing substantially easier to do. So I'm going to subtract from this piece again, because I had undid it there for a second. And then we have these floor plates, right, that are coming through here. In an effort to think about circulation, moving from one object to another, what I think I'll do here is I'm going to duplicate these edges. So I'm going to duplicate this edge, and this edge. And that's created just those lines that are sitting right here. And so I'm going to type isolate, which will hide everything except for what I have selected. At this point, I would trim the top off this, and I'm going to select this. I'm pressing spacebar to use the last command I used, which was trim. Again, that's my cutting line. I'll cut this line and that line off, which leaves me just with this kind of interior shape. I'll join it, type show to have everything appear again, and extrude this curve through. It wants to go at the angle that the shape is directed. I'm going to click direction because I'd like it to go along this flat plane, and click on this end of the plane. And actually what I'll do is I'll do extrude direction. I'll click on this corner because I can see that this corner over here is easy to click on. And by doing that, I can control the direction it extrudes, even if the curve was a little lopsided to begin with. And I'll Boolean difference out from this shape, this interior one. So now, if I look in here, we can actually see through that shape, which is what I had hoped would happen. So now, circulation-wise, we can move through this, and we've created an aperture on this side that is not irrelevant. It's something that is directly correlated to an action that's happening on the other side. A force applied here is coming out as an action on this side, which is kind of an interesting way to think about that. Finally, I'm going to kind of clean up this edge. I will subtract from this piece my bigger one so I can delete this little thing that sticks out. I think I'll do the same with this part right here. Subtract from this that, clean that up. So that leaves us with a nice little cleaned up aperture. And this will also make it so these parts are all substantially more clean in the grand scheme of things. So now we're back to this kind of point, and I would say that it's on the edge of standing, this piece, and this one's flat on the ground, so it's not ideal. But it's also interesting to think about if some of these shapes aren't such easy shapes to extrude. So you guys also have a number of interesting tubes or interesting kind of moving lines. So what I might consider here is a line that moves up and through as a supporting piece, so not a completely straight line. So maybe I'll start at the edge here, and it would work up into the middle here, and then it would come back out this side. It's not exactly where I want the line, so I'm going to click on the line and then click on this point and drag it out here so that way I can see where that line might go. And then to make sure it intersects, I'll drag this point up and drag it further inside of this mass. If you click on a line and you don't have points, you can click on the line and type points on. You can see it up here at the top, and that will allow you to see those points. So at this time, I'll also grab this point and pull it further into the drawing so that it's actually going through some of the other objects. And I could type pipe and set my widths by typing a distance or just clicking here and clicking here. And that would give me a closed pipe that ran that distance. But my language in this is much more of a rectangular structure. So that doesn't really fit with my narrative. So what I'll do is I'll attach a rectangle or a square. I'll hold shift to keep the rectangular tool in the square mode. And I'll type sweep 1 or just sweep, and sweep 1 will automatically there. And it'll ask me for a rail, so I'll select this is my rail, and then without hitting any other buttons, we'll say select cross section. And I'll select this, hit enter, and that's going to give me a rail that piece runs on, and then I typed cap. If I look here, it's a closed solid poly surface. So that's a much more in the kind of the languages that I'm already using. And then I might Boolean difference, and because it's going through these things, I'd subtract from these this, so that we can see through that. Subtract from Boolean difference from this, and now we can start to see that. And maybe the last thing I do to balance out this project is try to think about what I can do right here, because we have like a couple structural objects coming up that are helpful. But the weight isn't really evenly distributed. It's kind of lopsided in this case. So the last thing I'll do, and I'm just going to check the time real quick. Yep, we're right about where we want to be. Is maybe make a cubic object to call out the difference between this and those. So I'll start with a cube. And start thinking, again, you guys should have some ideas about what you're working with here. What I might do is a move, or I might start adding more kind of circular objects to this. So maybe I'll do a smaller one, turn that sideways, extrude that through the piece, combine them, delete my extra curve there, and maybe the last thing I'll do here is round off this corner so that there's a relationship between these two opposing corners. To do this, what I'm going to do is just move this to here. And I think I might be able just to select this. Let's do this the right way. So there might be a faster way of doing this, but in this example, I'm going to try to show you guys the always green version of doing this. which would be keep the circle from before. Don't just delete it. And I'm going to move this circle so that it comes to this point. And now I'm going to draw a line from here, go to my elevation view where I can see this, which is still this view. I'm going to draw the line down and around, producing the area that I want to cut off. So you see how that runs this way. Then I'll type trim and trim the outside of the circle. Then I'll click on this line and I'll type join. And so now in perspective, if I hit extrude, I've created kind of this half pipe shape that I can slide over slightly to make sure it's moving all the way through my shape. And I can Boolean difference from this, my half pipe, and that will give me my desired curve off the side there. Then lastly, might be interesting for this one to have kind of apertures on two sides. So I will dupe face border for both this side and this side. This one, I'll just do a slight... Oops. I accidentally hit enter, so it was using a second command again. Dupe face border this side and this side. All right, I'll take this one and I'll offset it, and I'll probably reduce it so that it's only half as wide. That gives a little more agency. And then I'll take this one, offset it again to my base distance, and then maybe I'll cut it off at this halfway, which will mean that I'm going to click on this line, trim, click on the bottom part here, and join that. So now when I extrude this through, I'll Boolean difference this with that, delete this part, and I'll do the same thing here. Extrude this, but I'll only go to this wall. So this is a good learning moment. I can't really cut this off here because I deleted the piece I used to cut it. And this is a square piece, so it's causing me a little bit of problems. And rather than just say, oh, it's a design decision, I'll fix it. And the right way to fix this is just don't delete this piece, or better yet, don't delete this entire line. Just split this line by this center line. So now we have two here. And I'll just copy this to the other side so I know where that line is. Now I can delete that. I will select these curves, rejoin them, re-extrude them, re-Boolean difference them, leaving me with that shape again. On this side, we have the original two curves. I'll rejoin them, re-extrude them back, extrude this to this wall, Boolean difference, actually Boolean split this shape, the one that is too long, by this one in the middle. And you'll see that the part I'm deleting here is that extra part. So now when I delete both of these, this shape is actually this big, including this little bit that's stuck in the wall. And because I want that bit to be cut out, I'll just rejoin these two, Boolean unioning them, and then I'll Boolean difference from this larger shape, this one. And that's going to leave me with an interior that is substantially kind of more complex or dynamic or specific than just one simple extrusion. I'll click on this, merge all faces, just to keep the lines as clean as possible. Grab my kind of piece here and bring this up and start to consider how this one might find a home in these pieces, rotating around it, getting a play. I kind of wanted to intersect both of these, so it probably is going to need some kind of rotation this direction. I wonder if it's more interesting if that piece goes all the way through these. Maybe this one should be a little more straight up and down, and what I'll do is I'll just slide the whole thing over a little bit so that it intersects both columns. I'm also going to scale 1D, so clicking on one side of this and then the next in one direction to make that a little bit longer so that it pierces And I think that I'm okay with that, at least for the sake of this tutorial. So I will Boolean difference from these two rods, creating those nice lined edges. It also intersects this piece. This is a moment where I think this one would bend. This one's kind of a softer shape in my version, so I'm going to remove this from that. So this has a nice little, if I pull this out, you'll see it has a nice little dimple in it now from intersecting with that piece. This also has like this projection here, so that might make me think that to get from one of these sides to the other, dupe edge, I would need another kind of aperture like I had before. So I'll join those edges, scale, maybe make it smaller. Maybe you enter on the top half of this one, and it would extrude through here. So I'll Boolean difference from this guy, and then delete that. So now there's a visual connection between those two on the interior. That's pretty not good. You don't really want moments like that. I would probably go back and maybe make this a little bit shorter before I Boolean difference it. Oh. All right, now the Boolean difference is not done. Control-Z works miracles. And maybe even pass it all the way through again, you know? Who's to say? Who is to say? So now we have that piece that shows a relationship all the way through. And then the last thing is maybe add some more floor plates inside of this shape. So what I would do is, in this case, I'm going to stick to flat floor plates, as the language of my model kind of is of that nature. I'm going to just make a really huge floor plate and bring it up to where I want one. You can type copy and then click vertical here, and now you don't have to worry about your copies going all over the place. They'll only run in a vertical direction. So I have one there, and I'll make one here, and maybe one at the base of those pieces, one maybe up here, and then for kicks, we'll put one up there. So that's a number of floor plates. And now we just want to make sure that they're inside of our strange shape we have here. So we will dupe edge again, clicking on the edges of our shape to make sure that we're getting the interiors. You can click through other objects if things are getting in your way. But there's our shape. We're going to hit enter, type join, and then we'll extrude that, and luckily it's going to extrude the direction that we want it to. So I'm gonna let it go a little bit past the front, because I kind of like it when the floor plates break the shape boundary. And then I'll type Boolean split, select all my floor plates, hit enter, click on the shape inside, hit enter, delete the shape inside, and delete my extra floor plate bits. And what that's left me with is a shape with flat floor plates that run inside of the shape. They're all very well cut, very clean. They do some interesting stuff where they need to. And the last thing I do is just go back through, select all my floor plates for good measure, and Boolean difference out structural elements, just to make sure once again that we're doing the right thing. So maybe this is my final model. This is what I'm left with. Yeah, thinking about these things as solids, thinking about every cut you do, every change you make as a Boolean operation, working with individual parts one at a time, considering interesting interiors with small kind of changes that may or may not affect how things work. You know, even something as small as that kind of extrusion on the end of a ground, assuming you guys are making intentional decisions, is going to make a difference. That's a very interesting setup to consider floor plates as moving past, or ends as moving through, or diving boards, or whatever it is that you want to talk about. I think there's also a sloppy edge over here. Another thing you can do if your model is completely done is I'm going to, I don't know if you guys know this, but if you drag up and from the right, or down and from the right. If you're going from right to left, it will select whatever your box touches. But if you go to the left and try to select something, it will not. It will only select things that your entire box encloses. So from the right means that if your box touches it, you get it. But from the left, it only will take the thing that's inside of it. So you see I'm touching that circle, but I'm only going to select this interior circle. So what I'm doing here is I'm just selecting down and to the left to get only this thing, typing isolate, so that it's the only thing left. And then this is the model I'll use to show you all how to do your turntable rotations in the upcoming, very upcoming video. It will be produced momentarily as soon as I'm done recording this one. I just found another sloppy moment. Yeah, so hopefully that was helpful. Apologies if it's quick. I don't want you guys spending forever trying to do every single one of these steps. Everybody's project's going to be a little different. Sweeps, Boolean operations. Again, looking at more of your pieces, most of that should be pretty similar. Adding chunks, subtracting chunks, floor plates, and supports. So yeah, hope you guys are able to take advantage of this. And then the last thing here on the ground is just my pedestal for when I do my rotation, and I'll just touch on that in the rotation video. But Boolean difference from this, and this, so that they all end flat on the table. But yeah, see you in the next video.